Thank you. We'll call the meeting to order at 12:59. I will ask if there is any provision for the disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof. Seeing none. We have minutes of the May 14th, 2025 meeting of the Planning Advisory Committee. Are there any errors or omissions? Could I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Jim Mosley, second by Ian Bremner. All in favor? So moved. Just before we get into the meat of the meeting, we do have a couple of municipal planners. Stephanie and Lindsay are here from Thames Center and Middlesex Center. What we will do is we'll go through our agenda. Towards the end, we'll give you a chance if you'd like to make a comment or add something. We'll allow you to do that at that time. So right towards the end of the meeting, we'll do that, okay? Thank you. Action items, Middlesex County Official Plan Review, Growth and Development, Agriculture, and I believe Abby's going to kick it off.
There we go. Thank you, Chair. Through you to members of the committee. So I'm just going to go over the agenda quickly. So we're going to start with a review and discussion. And then we have our consultation and engagement consultant, Corey Consulting, online with us to provide a brief summary to the committee. And then we're going to move into policy discussion and then next steps. So first and foremost, are there any questions from members of the committee for staff at this point in time? Great. Okay, so the PowerPoint. There we go. So we're going to start with the first Planning Advisory Committee meeting, just as a refresher for members of the committee. So at that meeting, staff introduced the project to the committee, and we provided an overview of the 4 key topic areas that are being considered, including agriculture, housing, economy and growth and development. We also touched on some of the provincial changes, and we discussed some key topics like bridging solutions-oriented planning approaches into the county official plan. Moving on to the second meeting, we had our housing consultant attend the meeting to review the land use recommendations of the Attainable Housing Review with the committee. We discussed reallocating servicing capacity or use it or lose it. We talked about affordable housing targets and, of course, additional residential units. And at that meeting, the committee passed the motion that is on the slide. At the third meeting, we had our Director of Economic Development from the county attend. She touched on the CBRE Tourism Toolkit and the land use recommendations from that exercise with the committee. We discussed employment areas as well as regional opportunities, and we also had our agronomist consultant present to the committee on agricultural parcel sizes. Moving on to the fourth committee meeting, Watson and Associates presented the population, employment, and housing forecasts that were prepared based on the Ministry of Finance Fall 2024 projections. We discussed settlement area boundary expansions and matters that should be considered by municipalities when assessing applications to expand settlement area boundaries. We touched on the agricultural systems approach, agricultural surplus dwellings, inadvertent lot mergers, as well as policies to support farm-related businesses. So that's what kind of brings us to where we are to date. And at this time, I'm going to hand things off to Lynn at Corey to provide the committee with an overview of some of the consultation and engagement that we've undertaken to date. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Abby. Thanks for having me come present to this committee and share some of the key findings, themes, and insights that we gathered after completing the engagement activities with some of the key sectors for the official plan. So if we just move to the outline, is someone, or sorry, do you want me to share, or is someone going to share the charts? I'm not sure if they're being shared.
Yeah, we have staff here that will share the chart for you.
Okay, I'm happy to if you guys can't. Perfect. Yeah, we'll just move to the next chart. Maybe just by way of outline. So in your meeting materials, you will have the complete engagement summary report. I'm not going to read through or speak to every point in the material, but I'm going to provide a bit of an overview of our key findings, the methodology of our engagement approach, and the main themes and insights that Middlesex will really need to keep in mind when completing the official plan refresh. And obviously in the appendix, I've provided all the details from our engagements, which will be helpful for all of you to reference, and perhaps even use as a gut check when making some of those final decisions, or perhaps justifying some of your decisions around the official plan. So if we just move to the next chart, just to give you a bit of an overview, obviously the context for the engagement was really to consult with key sectors and community members who live and work in the county. We've taken multiple approaches to cast a wide net and ensure that we're gathering a lot of input from many interested parties. So we have 3 public houses within our engagement scope. One that already happened in May, which was non-statutory in nature, obviously earlier on in the process. But we've got 2 more coming up in the fall, which will be statutory in nature, obviously a little bit more structured, and with much more information to share with the public at that time in the fall. We also hosted 4 focus groups, so there was 33 participants. We spoke with municipal CAOs, the municipal councillors. We also spoke with representatives from the agricultural and economic development communities. And additionally, we hosted a community survey. So we asked for input around the 4 main areas for focus within this plan refresh, around housing, agricultural lands, economic development, and the growth of the county. And I would say we received a fairly good response rate with 95 completed surveys. So all of this information then got gathered and boiled down into 4 key takeaways. And I'll talk a little bit more about each of these, but the first was really around housing and the need to expand affordable housing, diverse housing, and by easing some of those barriers and using supportive policies. The second was really around preserving farmland through focused growth and sustainable practices. The third was around streamlining processes and enabling more flexible planning for economic development. And the last was really around aligning expansion with infrastructure and protecting land and modernizing land use around the policy frameworks. So I'm going to get into more of these details in just a minute here, but maybe I'll share a little bit more about our methodology on the next chart. Thank you. So since collecting all the data, we then synthesized and analyzed all the data into some key themes, which is included in the full engagement summary report that you all have. And I think while it includes the aggregated themes and insights, which I'm going to speak to today, it also includes a breakdown from each of the groups that we met with. So you can see input by group. And as I mentioned, you can reference these throughout your decision making as a committee. And I can certainly go through more details perhaps at a future forward-looking meeting. So if we just move to the next chart, let's talk a little bit about the key themes and insights. So if we move to the next one again. Thank you. So obviously the official plan focus areas really provided us those guardrails or the big buckets of topics that we wanted people to weigh in on. But then each of these focus areas kind of took on a particular sub-theme. So for example, the housing focus area emerged with a theme around affordable housing on serviceable land. So the key insights around housing became about, prioritizing affordable housing, and affordable homes and senior housing to meet some of those changing demographics and preferences, the kind of the bookends of the younger generations and the older, the aging generation. And it also looked at exploring how to leverage policies around land use to support more diverse housing options. The agricultural focus area kind of emerged with a theme around protecting farmland, no surprise, and supporting agricultural viability. So some of those key insights were around protecting farmland, addressing farm succession, and potentially restricting non-farm development on prime ag land. The economy focus area emerged with a theme around smart growth planning. And some of the key insights were focused around agriculture related sectors, but also tech manufacturing and robotics came up, as well as incentivizing job creation and regional partnerships. I think particularly in light of what's going on south of the border, but better supporting entrepreneurship as well and flexible land use policies. And finally, the focus area around growth and development really emerged into a theme around sustainable land stewardship. So, some key insights around expanding settlement boundaries with adequate infrastructure, affordability, and alignment with the county's vision, obviously, and ensuring that we continue to consult the public throughout planning while promoting accessible communities. So I'll get into a little bit more details for each of these, but I just wanted to see if there's any questions on some of the key themes that emerged before we move on.
I don't see any at this time. Just carry on.
Okay, great, thank you. So we'll move to the next chart. And I know that there's a lot of information on these next few charts. So the next chart, if we just move to that one, is around the first theme. Thank you. Around affordable housing and serviceable land. And again, a lot of information here, but I'm going to just provide the voiceover for you. So what we heard from community members and interested parties was really the need for better affordability with regards to housing and more manageable housing options. So that might mean smaller homes such as townhomes, semi-detached units, and apartments that really align not just, I guess with financial means, but people's buying preferences or evolving buying preferences. So there was really a strong voice from young buyers around the need to have smaller houses, and perhaps, that might have something to do with their inability to buy large properties and build houses, perhaps unlike what, previous generations looked for when they moved to the county years ago. But there was also a strong voice from the aging population as well. So people who are looking for senior appropriate housing and the ability to allow for aging within their own homes and their own neighborhoods. So when you think about what this means for Middlesex County, there's a few things to consider when updating the official plan. So, we need to look at or relook at policies that will help increase affordable housing options for younger generations, as well as senior housing options. The need to address some of the zoning and restrictions and infrastructure limitation barriers also came up, and that will help pave the way for that higher density development and additional residential units. And then there's an overall balancing of housing expansion with protecting farmland, which I know is an ongoing balance, but really encouraging development within existing neighborhoods, leveraging more of those brownfield areas before looking to use up farmland for residential purposes. So if we move to the next chart, it's really around the protecting farmland and supporting agricultural viability. So the second theme, and we heard things like, obviously, agriculture remains a cornerstone of Middlesex County's identity. But it's facing significant pressure from urbanization, as I know you all feel and know, all too well. And the need to really focus on directing growth inward. So looking at maximizing the density within communities rather than expanding beyond settlement boundaries. So kind of complementing what we heard in the housing theme. So when you think about what this means for Middlesex County, the county may want to leverage the official plan to look at directing growth inward, so increasing density within existing communities to prevent that urban sprawl as much as you can within your span of control. Policies that look to support farm viability through on-farm housing for those seasonal workers, which came up, and proper and thoughtful succession planning to avoid losing farmland. And continuing to strengthen cross-municipal coordination, which I know you you've already been doing and you do quite well, but to create really clear frameworks for settlement boundary expansion, which is ultimately going to help you protect agricultural land and accommodate those housing needs.
And
So
we
if we
do
go
have,
to the third,
we do have a question for you at this time. Go ahead, Jim.
I push the mic again? Or?
No,
Okay.
you're good.
Part of the learning curve. I appreciate the time and I sort of back up I had my hand up, didn't get the button push. But when you go back to your page 13, the last section on on the sustainable section, in there you talk about the settlement areas. Is there a move afoot? Are people interested in expanding the settlement areas, or is it was that part of the questionnaires that came back? How you would develop the settlement areas, and I purposely look at if they're not on full services. Am I missing that question on that, or is that being addressed?
well, I'll answer, and certainly I'll invite Abby and Dirk to weigh in as well, based on what they've heard, and they were part of some of the engagement that we hosted with the community and the sectors. I think there is appetite for expanding the settlement areas, except I think there was a strong advocacy as well for looking at a development within, so inward, and looking at growth inward to avoid, the pushing on those boundaries. And, looking at sort of that gentle density came up, and the ability to develop on existing lands. So I don't know if that answers your question, and maybe I'll turn to my colleagues around the table to weigh in further if I maybe missed the mark there.
Yeah, part of it does, but if I would, Mr. Chair, if you could just allow me. But when I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking about, there's been issues that come up over the last 25 years where there are issues within a development area where all of a sudden they don't have sufficient water or adequate potable water to service those areas. And so then it looks at the municipality to bring them from a different pipeline or some other part of a structure to service that small hamlet. And I know it's happened throughout Ontario, and I get concerned sometimes when I see that okay, we can maybe put another road on the side of it or something like that, to not to make light of it, but put a road on the side of it that we could maybe put another 15 homes in here, but that could create a problem on the aquifer that won't allow adequate water to be used within that hamlet area, and then they'll come back to the municipality pushing for expansion of a system that nobody has the money for.
Right.
Okay, that was why I asked that question on that. And the other one was on seniors approved housing, because there's been a push for, I'm going to say the last 10 years, where everybody's looking for some way of allowing seniors to retire within their community. And most communities don't have the adequate, and I don't want to use the word affordable, but obtainable housing for seniors. And I guess maybe that's why it's on here. And I don't know, because of the value of the land, how that's going to change much. And I'm just wondering how you could, what a municipality could do through their planning to allow that. And I guess that's really why I was asking that question.
I don't know, Dirk or Abby, if you've given some thought in terms from a planning perspective, how that is going to be. Certainly, we heard that in the engagement, and that's part of the. When you peel back the onion, you need to look at the feedback that we received from community members. But I don't know, Abby, Dirk, if you've got thoughts on whether that's being addressed through the planning committee.
Yeah, thanks for your question. So that is something that is being considered through this exercise in terms of expanding policy direction as it relates to increasing housing options. One of those being housing for seniors. So it is something that we are considering at this point in the process. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other questions before I move on? Give people a chance to weigh in.
John, thank you very much. There's farming, there's no question that farming is important, and the most important industry in Middlesex County. There's some linguistics that I didn't see in here that I think are important. The first, corporate farming. We have there's many examples of farmers in excess of 10,000 acres, and this is corporate farming. And I don't see that terminology here. You talk about succession planning. Very often, children do not want to go into farming, and what is the result is that these farms are being sold to corporations.
Yeah.
And I can give you numerous examples in Southwest Middlesex where that's happened. I don't see that terminology. I would like to see it in here. Another word that I think is lacking in the document is vertical farming. We just recently had a $90 million investment, and there is going to be another $200 million addition to it in terms of vertical farming under glass. This is important, particularly Middlesex County is well blessed in light units, particularly in the southwest section of it. There's a lot of light units. Vertical farming is going to be an industry that you will see more of in Middlesex County. What has transpired in Leamington, in areas like that, they're running out of land and they are now migrating into Middlesex County. And there is a very strong example of that. Another aspect in terms of housing is going up higher, fourth and fifth floor. I know that we see structures with 3 floors. Is there ever going to be consideration to go higher in those units to a 4th and 5th level in flooring that would be promoted? The concern I have there is firefighting capability. Very often our firefighting equipment cannot reach beyond that 3rd floor. So those are some things that I don't see, and I'll let the powers that be consider those several aspects to see if they could be integrated in that. Thank you, John, very much.
Thank you so much.
Go ahead, Ian. Got one more question for you, Ian?
Question, comment. I've been thinking about housing quite a bit and how to make it more affordable. I've come to the conclusion, unless governments want to start building at any of the 3 levels, it's not going to get any more affordable, because I'm a private developer. I have so much land, and I can build apartments that rent for $1,000 a month, or I can build ones that rent for $2,000. I'm pretty sure I can rent the 2,000 ones. I know what I'm building. I'm building a 2,000 rent apartments for a $300,000 house, build a $500,000 house instead of $250. Until we get by that, we can plan all we want, but as long as there's private money going in, they're going to go where the money is. And hate to say that, but that's and maybe at some point governments have to step up, and which is more provincial, federal likelihood, but
Yes, I'd like to I appreciate the consultant's remarks on brownfields. I think that is exceptionally important. The problem with brownfields, and we have 2 railway lines going right through Middlesex County, and those railways have left souvenirs from the early 19th century, and there are some toxicities in the soil, particularly abandoned Cargill plants and things like that, that many at this horseshoe will know of. Scotch Fertilizer, Cargill, Agris. You know, where we find the problem with brownfields is that we can remediate them. It'll cost us $1 million to remediate the brownfield. And you know, the value of the land might be $500,000 or $600,000. That same parcel of land in Toronto will still cost $1 million to remediate, and they can sell it for $20 million. And that's where the problem is in rural Ontario and brownfields, is that the remediation costs are the same as large urban areas, but the liquidity value of it is not. And that's where that issue in brownfields is really really a problem. We could put affordable housing on brownfields in a minute, but it's just the valuation of the land and the cost to remediate it, the differences are so high, it's a problem. I'm not sure how we can get across that without talking to building services. When you pour concrete and a slab on there and no basements, is that accessible housing? We want children and we want seniors and young adults to live in a clean and safe environment. But in terms of you're suggesting going on into brownfields as an option rather than going out. Have you examined that? What are the options open for investment on a brownfield currently, and what's your vision on that? Like, how do you access brownfields, and where's the money come from?
I'm going to maybe ask Dirk or Abby to weigh in on what they're exploring with the planning consultant around the viability and the options around developing brownfields or not.
Yeah, thank you for your question. I think there are numerous answers for this one. I think it really depends, on what you're developing the brownfields for, whether that be housing or even commercial type uses or mixed use development. In terms of the points you mentioned about costs of brownfields in rural Ontario versus some of our larger urban centers, certainly a big factor, but very market driven. And that's about all I have right now. Certainly something that we can continue to consider and are accepting feedback on. We're still early on in this process. Just want to remind committee members of that. And hopefully we'll have something before you in the fall that will address the points that you've just mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair, Abby, I think that's a point well made, that we're talking about setting up a framework, and there's going to be a lot of discussion and conversations to how that will be applied. And I know to brownfields, there's different regulations to different areas. If it's a residential area, it's different things you have to do compared to if it's a commercial area. And I think this is all going to come out with the project once we set this and the research going. Is that not right?
Yeah, thank you for your question. That's correct. And there will likely be different brownfields policies for different land uses in accordance with any applicable legislation or requirements from MECP and so on and so forth. Thank you.
I think that's good. I think we'll, as the system evolves and you guys look into it more, I think by the time the fall comes, we'll maybe have more definite answers on that than we do today. Go ahead.
Thank you. So I think we're just on the third theme. We've got the two more themes here, and I'll just kind of zip through them so I'm not eating into too much more of your agenda. So in terms of the theme around smart growth planning, there's a few things that the county may want to consider as part of its official plan refresh. So prioritizing and attracting and retaining jobs within agriculture, but also manufacturing, agribusiness, and some of those emerging sectors like robotics and food processing might be considered. Streamlining regulatory processes to reduce, development fees and foster better partnership with regional economic organizations, and also encouraging diversified commercial and industrial land uses. So to your point, to someone's earlier point there, around, commercial use, and certainly we can incorporate, corporate farming, vertical farming, and such as well in the other themes. And maybe if we just move to the final and the fourth theme, around strategic settlement expansion, and thank you for the question earlier around this topic. It's really around the growth of the county, and what we heard was that new growth should really align closely with existing or planned infrastructure capacity to really avoid unsustainable future maintenance burdens on the municipality. So we've heard that loud and clear, and I think it's been echoed at this table as well. So what this means for the county, is the official plan may help define a few things around settlement expansion. So particularly around ensuring settlement area expansions are carefully evaluated based on infrastructure capacity, and alignment with long-term sustainability, and obviously the county's vision and the vision of its municipalities. Protecting farmland and natural environments by directing growth to designated settlement areas. And promoting complete and accessible communities. So again, in line with the county's long-term vision. And finally, continuing to engage communities meaningfully throughout the planning process and decision-making. So if we just go to the next chart, I won't speak at length about this. I will just say that we also captured specific input from the community survey, and it was aligned with these four themes as well. But you can see that they're very similar to what we've just walked through across the main themes. I've also included much more detail in the appendix around the participants and the representation at each of the focus groups that we facilitated, the types of questions that we asked each of the focus groups, the output of the focus group discussions, and certainly much more detail around the community survey feedback. So I will just pause there. That kind of completes the overview of the overall engagement summary to this point in time. Obviously, we'll get some more feedback as we look to the 2 more statutory public open houses in the fall, and certainly more to come once we get those scheduled. So I'll just pause to see if there's any final questions before I hand it back to the chair.
Anyone have a question? Alan, go ahead.
John, I apologize for hogging this mic, but again, I think at the end of the day, it's always nice that instead of just a policy document, that it's also a visionary document that I think I find appealing as well. When you talk about settlement expansion and building from within versus building from within, I don't think there will be a councillor at this table without exception, that hasn't had a facility of faith close up in the municipality. I don't think there's one in here. And when those places of faith were established in the mid-1800s, they were generally right in the middle of our towns and villages. And at the time, of course, they're very expansive in terms of their footprint. And many of them now are empty buildings. If that's a vision. Those places of faith are empty. They are fully serviced with hydro and water and sanitary, stormwater management and sanitary capabilities. They're a developer's dream. And why are they remaining just empty? Why can't a planning process envision an Anglican church or a United Church that's closed up and put some senior apartment units in there in its stead? The land is there. I know that it's harder to deal with the diocese than it is a business individual, but I see a lack of proper development right through Ontario in that resource of land that is not being used effectively. And that's one example at the present time. That's the only example of vision that I can give you. But it's nice to have a visionary document that doesn't tell us what the problems are, but gives us a way to solve the problems. John, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anything further from anyone? No, we thank you for being here. Is there anything else you want to add before you, oh, go ahead. Ian?
On this settlement areas, if they're not fully serviced, to expand them, that's the most inefficient use of your farmland because you have to put on larger lots. And just makes it worse. So my policy would be if it's not on full services, you can fill in if there's any empty lots, but that's it. And don't bother coming around bothering us or buying the land on the edges, hoping you have development rights. And just, well, related, I guess, is there any class 4 or 5 land in Middlesex County, I wonder?
Abby, go ahead.
Thank you for your question. I can't confirm that definitively. There may be some sporadically throughout the county, but I don't know the exact amount. Thank you. Lynn, I wasn't sure. Do you have anything else to add? Or
I don't. No, I don't. I just want to see if there's any final questions, and if not, I will exit stage left.
Go ahead, we have one more question. Go ahead, Jesse.
At least for me, it makes more sense to for me to move to a new area because everything's always nice, beautiful, new park. Is there a way, to his point, for a visionary to have like a park for every so many houses so that I'm guaranteed my kids don't have to cross a highway like they currently do
I
to get
think,
to a park?
I think in every new subdivision, there's usually parkland.
In
In
new
every new subdivision, and I think most of the old ones have a park area too, but.
A lot of them have been taken away, at least in Strathroy and area. And then they built up a new subdivision, new park, new community center, then your kids would have to cross.
I think,
Entire town.
I think that's an individual municipality's preference, how they do. Go ahead.
yeah, thanks for that question or that comment, I guess. So Parkland is currently a provision under the Planning Act, and it's wholly within a municipality's purview to require parkland dedication through the Planning Act process. Maybe some of the neighborhoods that you're thinking about that are like losing their parks or have smaller parks or no parks were developed under a previous planning regime where parkland wasn't as big of a focus or an issue. But it is certainly something that is within a municipality's purview as part of the Planning Act process, and is certainly something that we would consider through official plan policies as well at a high level. Thank you.
Seeing nothing else, thanks, Lynn, for your presentation. We appreciate it, and we'll look forward to the public meetings in the fall and some final comments at that time.
That's great. Thank you so much.
We'll turn it back to Abby now, I guess.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm on slide 27 in the slide deck now. It's the policy discussion slide. Thank you. So yeah, we're going to get into the policy discussion portion of the presentation. We're going to start off with settlement area boundary expansions. We're going to move into agricultural matters, then on to additional residential units. Then we're going to look at regionally significant employment areas, as well as other considerations following that. So on the settlement area boundary expansions, so of course, as we're all aware, the new provincial planning statement removed the requirement for a municipal comprehensive review to expand settlement areas. So that, in addition to some amendments to the Planning Act, have kind of opened the floodgates for privately initiated official plan amendments to be considered for the purpose of expanding settlement area boundaries. And of course, as a result of this, a clear evaluation framework is necessary in order to assist municipalities in assessing proposals and upholding long-term planning objectives. So we have prepared some working draft type policies that we are hoping to get some feedback on from members of the committee for inclusion in the county's official plan. So I will just read them and we can discuss them after I get through these slides, if that's okay. So to start, we've included the following. The county's growth management framework acknowledges that population employment growth will occur over the planning horizon. To ensure it is sustainable, growth must be carefully managed to minimize impacts to the natural heritage system and the agricultural system, and coordinated with the timely provision of appropriate infrastructure and services. These principles are critical to supporting long-term environmental protection, agricultural viability, and the efficient delivery of municipal services. Settlement area boundary expansions must be considered within the broader context to ensure responsible, well-planned growth and to support the achievement of complete communities. An amendment to the local municipal official plan will be required to facilitate the expansion or identification of a designated settlement area. Prior to the identification of a new settlement area or the expansion of the limits of an existing settlement area, the applicant shall provide the necessary background information to justify the new or expanded settlement area. In addition to the requirements listed in section 2.3.6 of this plan, which is the settlement area capability study requirements, which have been in the county OP for a number of years. This information must address the following. So the first is the need to designate and plan for additional land to accommodate an appropriate range and mix of land uses. If there is sufficient capacity in existing or planned infrastructure and public service facilities, whether the proposal reflects a logical integration with local servicing master plans, whether the applicable lands compromise a specialty crop area, the evaluation of alternative locations which avoid prime agricultural areas and where avoidance is not possible, consider reasonable alternatives on lower priority agricultural lands, whether the new or expanded settlement area complies with minimum distance separation, whether impacts on the agricultural system are avoided, or where avoidance is not possible, minimized and mitigated to the extent feasible as determined through an agricultural impact assessment or equivalent analysis based on provincial guidance, and the new or expanded settlement area provides for the phased progression of urban development. And what is meant by that is that we don't want to see leapfrogging on the outsides of a settlement area boundary. So we wouldn't want to see somebody trying to add lands that are further removed from the settlement area boundary and not directly abutting. So I know that that was a lot to take in, and there's a lot on the screen, but this is what we've drafted to date, and we are open to any feedback that members of the committee may have.
All right, thank you, John. Abby, this is a huge change in the legislation, this whole area. I mean, I guess one of my questions on this is, with the timely provision of appropriate infrastructure and services, what's the definition of timely? Or is that going to depend on the actual application to the sink? Because I don't think there's anyone who doesn't have stress on their wastewater systems already. And that's why I'm just wondering, what is the definition of timely? Or is there perceived?
Yeah, thank you for your question. So I do think that that would be considered on a site-specific basis, and it is really contingent on the existing servicing situation that would pertain to those lands. I do think what is intended by that is that we wouldn't be, or a municipality wouldn't be in a situation whereby they've had lands added to the settlement area boundary that A, are unserviceable, or B, would take a long time to service or like exponential amounts of money. This could be expanded upon in a local official plan potentially to fit the local context. This really at the county level is intended to be more of like a higher level framework, and it is certainly subject to more specificity at the local level, should a municipality want to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just, if I see this and I see the way it's getting written now, could you foresee, or could this committee foresee, where you've got a lot of these hamlets that are going to be, for their wastewater, are going to be on a package system that dumps in a local creek, a package wastewater plant that's more efficient now than it ever was, plus a single well and distribution system with a small treatment, water treatment facility right there at each hamlet that would basically look after those community groups and allow that expansion within that. And the reason I ask that, because it's going to be very expensive for the municipality to look after all these things in a few years once they're out of warranty. That's all. And I don't know if that's been brought into the discussion when you were looking at this. Thank you.
Thank you. So it has, is it on? Yeah, so on the next slide, we do have a proposed policy that says where full municipal services are planned or available, the use of private or communal wastewater treatment systems, including package treatment plants, shall not be permitted. So that would apply to our, like our larger, like urban settlement areas. How that would look in a hamlet context is to be determined. I would note that through the two previous iterations of the 2020 PPS as well as the 2024 PPS, there has been a general relaxing of the servicing hierarchy as it relates to residential development. And there is some wording that speaks to the provision of services through these package wastewater treatment plants or private communal servicing. So the province does, there is a little bit of flexibility in that regard. But how that shakes out, I guess, is yet to be determined at this point. We can certainly look into expanding on these policies to have that speak to hamlet areas. But yes, that's kind of all we have right now.
Thanks, John. One thing that does occur to me, though, is when we're talking about expansions into or beyond our current settlement boundaries, in a lot of municipalities, for example, Thames Centre, where we have the majority of users are in areas where they are supplied by septic systems. The costs are astronomical to get, even in the village of Dorchester, where you're looking at lands for development in the north versus what we have in the south. Our sewage treatment plant is way over there. So in the meantime, I think there's got to be some conversation with the provincial government that as we go forward and they want more housing and they want them in more rural areas, there's got to be some regular, stable funding that comes into municipalities. Otherwise, we're between a rock and a hard place. If a developer does not want to even upfront the fees through DCs or any of that sort of thing, we've got major problems in expanding outside of our settlement boundaries. And I don't see an easy way around that, even though I do know, or I feel that there are developers out there who are probably running around trying to option land in anticipation of this legislation. I'm just throwing that out there. I know this committee is not going to have any real solution to this, but it's definitely, in my mind, a large barrier. Thank you.
In Middlesex County, we have that problem. All we have is good land. If we want an expansion outside the settlements, it's going on good farmland. I think you can tell you if there's anything less than class 2 around Hilderton, I'd be surprised. And the same around Park Hill, unless it's totally unbuildable because wetland or River Valley and the hills. All we can do is do the most efficient job of expanding, and which means maybe we don't all get a single family house, which is probably the majority of people in Middlesex would say that's what they want. So it's a unsolvable problem in some ways. And there's no cheap way to service them because the cheap septic system probably wouldn't work. And if you do a well, then you're into source water protection and a whole nother level of bureaucracy. So.
Thank you, Chair. So yeah, moving on to the last slide of these draft policies. We have another one written here that the population housing and employment forecast in Appendix B of this plan, along with the most recent census data, shall be the basis for the determination of land needs. And so that speaks to a proponent when they are coming forward with a submission. We would want them to prepare some sort of study or report that speaks to land needs so that they're able to designate need for the expansion. And so we just, this policy is intended to require that they use consistent data for the purposes of that. And then we have the policy there about the packaged wastewater treatment plants that I previously read. And then we also have, to support the coordination of growth management and infrastructure planning, local municipalities are encouraged to establish servicing capacity allocation studies. Sorry. These policies should guide the allocation and, where appropriate, reallocation of available system capacity to ensure infrastructure is used efficiently and growth is directed to appropriate locations. All right, so moving forward to the agricultural matters. So the agricultural policies are going to have to be updated to reflect the recent provincial planning statement and to support a resilient agricultural system. So these key changes will include implementing an agricultural systems approach to protect the interconnected components of the rural landscape, permitting additional residential units in prime agricultural areas, refining the policies for the surplus farm dwelling severances, reviewing minimum agricultural parcel size, and then potentially addressing inadvertent lot mergers. So again, similar to the settlement area boundary expansions, we've included some working draft policies that we're contemplating including in the OP. So I will maybe go through, I might do this section just slide by slide. So the first being that agriculture is a cornerstone of Middlesex County's economy, culture, and rural identity. The county is committed to protecting and promoting agriculture, not only as an essential industry, but as a way of life that supports local food production, the creative rural economy, and long-term economic sustainability. The county recognizes the importance of comprehensive planning for the agricultural land base and the agri-food network that together form the agricultural system. The agricultural system supports the viability of agricultural operations, ensures access to agri-supportive services and infrastructure, and fosters a strong and resilient agri-food sector. The policies of this plan are intended to protect the agricultural system by limiting the introduction of uses that are incompatible with normal farm practices, such as non-farm residential and other sensitive land uses. The sale of agricultural products, so this is separate from the first two paragraphs that I just read, just for the committee's information. And we included this policy as a result of feedback from members of the committee. And it says that the sale of agricultural products grown or produced on the farm shall be permitted on the same property as an on-farm diversified use, provided the scale and nature of the use remains accessory to the principal agricultural operation. And the intent of that policy is essentially to support farm gate establishments in the sale of produce that's produced on that farm at the farm gate. So
Go ahead, carry on.
thank you. So the next slide speaks to surplus farm dwellings. And so essentially what we've done here is we've taken the existing policy and included some suggested red line changes so that it will be consistent with the provincial planning statement. So this says the creation of one new residential lot may be permitted for residents rendered surplus to a farming operation as a result of farm consolidation, provided the residence was built at least 10 years prior. The new lot will be limited to a minimum size needed to accommodate the use and appropriate sewage and water services, and provided that new residential dwellings are prohibited on any vacant remnant parcel of farmland created by the severance. The county encourages local municipalities to include policies in their local official plan addressing considerations including minimizing the loss of agricultural land, addressing the retention of outbuildings with the resident surplus to a farming operation, including maximum building size and permitted uses, adequacy of services, and minimum distance separation. So the majority of that policy currently exists. The only change that we had to make was that the PPS is very clear in that it's the creation of one new residential lot per farm consolidation now. Whereas prior, if a lot had two dwellings, technically you could sever off both of the dwellings on the rendered surplus. Thank you.
And I may have missed it here, but it's more with the ARUs, like if somebody wants to build ARUs, is there something restricting how close it has to be? Is there some legislation there? Because, and my point to this is, if I don't want somebody to build a pig barn, I'm gonna put an ARU over at the corner of my farm. My house is far enough away, but can I put an ARU closer to the edge of my property to stop something like that?
Thank you for your question. So we will get into that. We do have some proposed ARU policies further on in the presentation. Yeah, so we are looking at a maximum distance separation between the primary dwelling on a lot and a detached ARU in the egg area. So we can discuss that further.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's carry on.
All right, so we're going to move on with the minimum agricultural parcel size. So I've included the existing policies here. So this is currently in the county plan. For the committee's information, we did add the last paragraph on this slide through County OPA 3 back in, I guess it was approved in 2023. Which provides that a different minimum farm parcel size for local municipalities may be considered through an amendment to the county official plan, provided that a study is carried out by the local municipality with the guidance and assistance of the province to demonstrate that the different farm parcel size is appropriate for the type of agricultural uses common in the local area, yet is sufficiently large enough to maintain flexibility for future changes to the type or size of agricultural operations. So that was a new policy added through the previous official plan review. And then on the next slide, we have just included here that based on a review or on the review of the agricultural lot sizes information that was presented to the committee by Stovall and Associates, staff are recommending the following motion. Which is that county council maintain the existing policy framework and minimum agricultural lot size of about 40 hectares.
Any questions? Go ahead.
Perfect.
Do we need a motion? We should have a, sorry, we should have a motion on that county council maintains the existing policy framework and minimum agricultural lot size of 40 hectares or 100 acres. Can I have a mover for that?
I'll move.
Thanks, Ian. Seconded by Jim. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? So moved.
Sorry. Okay, and then next on the agricultural topics, we have the inadvertent lot mergers. policies. So I think we briefly discussed this at the previous committee meeting. So this policy says existing lots that merge inadvertently due to common ownership may be separated by way of consent, provided that the severance reflects the original lot configuration. The subject property is still in the same ownership as when such merging occurred, and the severed and retained parcels meet road access requirements. Applicants are required to provide evidence or legal documentation which demonstrates that the lots are still under the same ownership as when the merging occurred. Once separated, the severed and retained parcels shall be considered a parcel of land that existed on the date that the inadvertent merger occurred. So this policy would be used for situations whereby it's typically two farm parcels that merge on title as a result of, in the past, it could have happened as a result of the death of a spouse. So the parcels would be held in common ownership and then inadvertently merge on title. Now, sometimes it's just that when two side-by-side lots are purchased, the lawyer may register them in the same name and ownership, and they would merge on title on that date. So in the past, we've had families or farmers come forward with consent applications of this nature to try and correct the inadvertent lot merger. But in situations whereby they don't meet that minimum farm parcel or minimum lot area requirement in the zoning bylaw, planning staff have to recommend denial because they would be creating two undersized farm parcels. So the intent of this policy is to assist in situations whereby this happens.
Go ahead, Alan.
That's a good policy. Is that a part of the provincial framework, or is that thinking outside the box?
Thank you for your question. So this actually is not considered within the provincial framework.
I didn't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
It's happened several times at the county level through a representation of mayors at the Horseshoe.
Yeah, go ahead.
You'll still have to go through the severance process, so this doesn't eliminate that.
Yeah, thank you for your question. That's correct. You would still have to apply to the council for consent.
Nothing pretty. Go ahead, Alan.
Thank you. So we're going to move on to the draft renewable energies policies. And this is as a result of changes to the provincial planning statement. So we have here that renewable and alternative energy systems shall be planned, designed, and constructed in a manner that avoids, or where avoidance is not possible, minimizes and mitigates adverse effects on surrounding land uses. This includes potential impacts from odor, noise, and other contaminants. All proposals shall prioritize public health and safety and demonstrate how risks will be minimized through appropriate design and siting measures. Sites for large-scale renewable or alternative energy systems must be of sufficient size to provide adequate setbacks from sensitive land uses, such as residential and institutional areas, in order to minimize potential impacts and ensure public safety. New or expanded renewable energy systems shall be developed in accordance with applicable provincial guidelines, standards, and procedures, and must demonstrate that potential adverse environmental and land use impacts are avoided or effectively mitigated, that risks to public health and safety are minimized, and that the long-term operational and economic viability of the facility is maintained. And large-scale solar farms shall not be permitted within the agricultural areas designation in accordance with provincial guidance. And that policy is rooted in direction from OMAFA. So just for the committee's information.
Seeing no questions, go ahead.
Thank you. So we're gonna get into the additional residential units discussion. This has been quite a hot topic among this committee and with our local councils. So the provincial planning statement permits the establishment of additional residential units within prime agricultural areas, which is new. And while the county official plan currently provides high-level policy direction to guide the development of ARUs in agricultural areas, it has become apparent that more detailed criteria will need to be considered through this official plan update. This includes the maximum size of ARUs, the clustering of buildings, and limitations on the severance of ARUs from the primary dwelling, among other considerations. And again, this was largely driven by the motion passed by the committee at the previous meeting. So I've included our existing policies, and for timing's sake, I don't think I'm going to read through these if that's okay. They were approved with modifications by the ministry back in 2023. They are quite high level as it relates to the agricultural ARUs. And so what we're kind of trying to do here today and through this entire official plan update exercise is to kind of try and flesh them out and really give some good consideration as to what policies fit our context best here in the county. So I included the motion again after the existing policies. And then I've divided the proposed policies in the presentation up by settlement area and agricultural areas. So I have in here that ARUs in settlement areas are largely governed by the Planning Act, given that they are permitted as of right where full municipal services exist. However, we are proposing to add the following policies, and they're essentially intended to provide municipalities with additional flexibility to exceed the 2 units that are permitted as of right, should they wish to do so. So this policy says, on a parcel of urban residential land as defined by the Planning Act, local municipalities may permit more than 2 additional residential units within a detached dwelling, semi-detached dwelling, row house, or building ancillary to a detached dwelling, semi-detached dwelling, or row house in locations deemed appropriate by council. Where full municipal services are not available, a total of 2 additional residential units are permitted on eligible parcels. So that would apply to our hamlet areas. And then moving forward, with the agricultural area proposed policies. We have done a pretty extensive review of kind of what other municipalities are doing and talking to our networks and our colleagues locally, of course. And this is what we've come up with. The development of ARUs outside of settlement areas shall be encouraged where appropriate as a means to increase the diversity and availability of housing options, while maintaining agricultural character, avoiding offsite impacts on surrounding agricultural operations, and minimizing land taken out of agricultural production. Where a residential dwelling is permitted on a lot outside of settlement areas, up to 2 additional residential units should be permitted, provided that where 2 additional residential units are proposed, at least one of these additional residential units is located within or attached to the primary dwelling. For additional clarity, the intent of this policy is to allow up to a total of 3 residential units per lot, which includes the primary dwelling unit in agricultural areas. And that policy is a result of the direction in the PPS, which requires that one of the ARUs in an agricultural area be within or attached to the primary dwelling, and one can be accessory, or you can have both of them within or attached to the primary dwelling. And then moving forward.
Go ahead, Chair.
Sorry, Abby, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but can I ask a question regarding the ARUs? In some cases, we have or have the potential of having additional buildings, a new structure, and then flipping that new structure, the ARU, to the original property, if you follow my meaning. So example is an older house on a property, I'm not talking about a residential lot, I'm talking about, a more rural lot of say an acre or more, and in which there is an existing house on the property, but an application comes in to build the ARU is substantially larger than, so the idea going forward would to then name the new property as the as the original property.
Yeah.
And the original property, it's convoluted, I know. And then using the original property as the ARU. Is that something that we should address, or is that something that's going to be determined solely at the municipal level when we get applications? Or am I jumping ahead of you? Sorry.
You're just thinking ahead. So we have addressed that in the working draft policies that we
I must have
have
missed
before
that.
you today.
Sorry.
It's all good. There is a ton of writing in these slides, so it's completely understandable. It's a lot of information for the committee to digest today. So
Sorry.
that's
I might have missed that one. Thanks.
yeah. So, and this is as a result again of that motion that was passed by the committee, and we've been coining these as reverse ARUs. So yes, we have addressed that. So we will get into the draft policies, starting with a total of 2 additional residential units are permitted on a lot outside of settlement areas where a residential dwelling is permitted. 2 additional residential units are permitted within or attached to the primary dwelling, or 1 additional residential unit within or attached to the primary dwelling and 1 in an accessory building. And then we have to mitigate potential impacts on surrounding agricultural operations and to minimize the amount of land removed from agricultural production, an additional residential unit located in an accessory building shall be clearly secondary and subordinate to the primary dwelling and situated no more than 30 meters from the primary dwelling. The floor area of an ARU in an accessory building shall be based on the size of the primary dwelling as follows. 1, where the primary dwelling has a ground floor area of 1,500 square feet or approximately 139 square meters or less, the ARU shall not exceed 75% of the ground floor area of the primary dwelling. And 2, where the primary dwelling has a ground floor area greater than 1,500 square feet, the ARU shall not exceed 50% of the ground floor area of the primary dwelling to a maximum of 1,184 square feet or 110 square meters, whichever is less. And then notwithstanding the above, local municipalities may establish more restrictive provisions regarding the maximum allowable floor area or separation distance of ARUs located in accessory buildings. Not sure if there's any questions on this slide.
I don't see any. Go ahead.
All right. So next we have an additional residential unit in an accessory building shall be located in a rear or interior side yard and shall be located within the established residential area on the lot that is generally comprised of the primary dwelling and accessory structures, outdoor amenity space, the driveway and on-site services. An additional residential unit shall use the same driveway as a primary dwelling, and sufficient parking areas for occupant use and emergency services shall be provided. The conversion of a primary dwelling on a lot to an additional residential unit as a means to construct a larger dwelling on the same lot will not be permitted. Where a temporary use bylaw exists to authorize 2 single detached dwellings on a property for a specified period of time, applications to convert the older dwelling to an additional residential unit will not be permitted. An additional residential unit shall not be severed from a lot except in accordance with section 4.5.3.4A of this plan, which is the surplus farm dwelling policies that we just previously discussed. So policy E on this slide is intended to address the reverse ARUs, both by way of constructing a larger, newer dwelling, as well as where somebody is trying to establish essentially 2 single detached dwellings on a lot by way of a temporary use bylaw. Yeah.
Don't see any questions.
Perfect. So next we have the co-location of water and wastewater services is preferred. A municipality may require a well and septic report to demonstrate that the on-site water supply and septic system are adequate to serve the additional residential unit. An additional residential unit shall meet minimum distance separation 1 requirements and shall be located no closer to a neighboring livestock operation than the existing primary dwelling unit. So that would speak to Brian's point. We don't want to further offend or cause any MDS issues in that regard. The additional residential unit shall generally not be permitted where a lot or dwelling already contains other accessory residential dwellings, so garden suites, and or uses including a group home, boarding or lodging house, or a home occupation that is characterized by higher occupancy, such as a bed and breakfast, a farm vacation, short-term rental, or other similar use. Notwithstanding this, additional residential units shall be permitted on a lot in addition to farm worker housing. That clause is directly from direction in the PPS. And then lastly, here we have local municipalities may establish a process for converting existing temporary garden suites to additional residential units. So what I mean here by garden suites is those units that are established by way of a temporary use bylaw that are not a single detached dwelling, that are were intended to be temporary in nature, but could be established permanently as an additional residential unit. And that would be a local municipal consideration.
Okay, we do have one motion here to pass. We've got questions first. Go ahead.
On E there, if I want to build an extra house, I would build a house, rip my old house down, and then I could put an ARU in then for E? Because it says you cannot. Like, so I could build a new house, I have 3 years or whatever to rip down the old house, I could rip that house down, then put an additional rental unit on?
Yes, that's correct. So the intent of this policy is to ensure that that original single detached dwelling is removed. And we're not in a situation whereby 2 single detached dwellings now exist on an agricultural parcel.
I don't know, I don't understand that for affordable housing though. I understand, just, I'll think about that.
Okay, just so everyone is aware, the motion to hear that county council consider including language in the OP to prohibit the severance of ARUs in rural areas and to address size, reverse ARUs and clustering. We have passed that at the past meeting, so we don't have to deal with that today. Go ahead, Amy.
Thank you, Chair. So we're going to move on and we're going to discuss the regionally significant employment areas. So we briefly touched on this at the previous committee meeting. And essentially, we have here that the county official plan could be amended to set a general framework for the establishment of regionally significant employment areas at the local level. Regionally significant employment areas would constitute clusters of business and economic activities, including manufacturing, research and development in connection with manufacturing, warehousing, goods movement, associated retail and office and ancillary facilities. And essentially, these regionally significant employment areas would be established for large-scale investment that would have regional benefit that transcends municipal boundaries. So in terms of the working draft policies that we have before you today, we have come up with the following. Regionally significant employment areas are large, fully serviced, contiguous tracts of land that may be established to attract large-scale industry that will have regional benefits. Uses may range from traditional manufacturing, warehousing, goods movement, knowledge and innovation, and ancillary offices or office parks. The county will support local municipalities to identify regionally significant employment areas. A local municipality will lead the process to identify and establish a regionally significant employment area, subject to the policies of this plan and in consultation with the county. The identification of such areas shall be supported by appropriate planning justification and reflect alignment with county and provincial policy objectives. Final designation of the regionally significant employment area shall be implemented through an amendment to the local official plan, including mapping on the applicable land use schedules to delineate the area. And the identification of a regionally significant employment area shall address the following. So the first is consideration of the following key locational criteria to guide the identification of regionally significant employment areas. These include provincial highways, county roads, and connectivity between transportation and infrastructure, proximity to the London International Airport, rail infrastructure, transit, the availability of municipal water and wastewater infrastructure, and identifying areas of sufficient size to support economic opportunities. The next criteria that we have here is whether the areas within a settlement area with full municipal services that are planned are available. Whether matters pertaining to land use compatibility can be achieved, including a 300-meter separation distance from sensitive land uses, and whether impacts on the agricultural system are avoided or where avoidance is not possible, minimized and mitigated to the extent feasible as determined through an agricultural impact assessment or equivalent analysis based on provincial guidance. And then we also have here that sensitive land uses that are not ancillary to the primary employment use shall be limited in employment areas and only permitted if such use can comply with D6 guidelines. More specifically, on lands within 300 meters of employment areas, development shall avoid or where avoidance is not possible, minimize and mitigate potential impacts on the long-term economic viability of employment uses within existing or planned employment areas in accordance with provincial guidelines. And detailed land use policies will be implemented in the local municipal official plan.
Seeing no questions, carry on.
All right, so we're gonna discuss some of the other considerations that were identified through consultation and engagement, as well as through discussion with this committee. So several other considerations were identified through discussion, and these don't technically fall under any of the specific key themes that were identified at the onset of the process, but we still feel that they remain important to the overall update to the plan. So these include aligning the county OP with updated provincial planning context. So this would provide users of the document with a little bit more information and guidance as it relates to the provincial planning framework, starting with the Planning Act, and then some language that speaks to the PPS as well. Also includes reflecting the county's updated council strategic plan, which was just recently passed by or endorsed by county council. Applying a solutions-oriented planning approach, as well as providing greater flexibility for local municipalities to rely on and implement the policies of the county official plan without amending their official plans. So the first slide that I have here is a redlined example of what we would be looking at in terms of the council strategic plan language. And essentially, this just reflects the updated council strategic plan. I guess I can touch on some of the goals that we would be looking to include in the county OP as a result of that exercise. And these include enhancing overall economic well-being and community prosperity by fostering a sustainable and thriving local economy, strengthen collaboration with local municipalities and regional partners to improve economic efficiency, enhance service delivery, and support regional development in alignment with community priorities. Expand and upgrade critical infrastructure to enhance resilience, efficiency, and accessibility while prioritizing sustainability and long-term cost effectiveness. And modernize the county's administrative capabilities to strengthen decision-making, improve service delivery, and achieve better community outcomes. The next slide here is in regards to providing more context on the provincial planning framework. And this was really rooted in discussion with this committee. And essentially what this policy says is that County Council acknowledges the role of the province of Ontario in the planning system. The policies of this official plan have regard for the long-range land use interest of the province as noted in Section 2 of the Planning Act, which will be listed in the draft official plan. So it will include, I think there's 19 of them, a list in the draft red line. And then we also have some language here that says the policies of this plan are consistent with those expressed in the provincial planning statement. The land use planning framework is guided by a set of core principles aimed at supporting the development of complete, inclusive, and resilient communities, including, and then there's a fulsome list that kind of summarizes the key goals and outcomes, I guess, that are identified in the PPS. Next, on other considerations, we have here that, so this is speaking to the solutions-oriented planning approach that our department typically views land use planning applications through. And this policy says that recognizing that some proposals may not neatly fit within the existing planning framework, the county supports a structured solutions-oriented approach to policy interpretation and implementation. This method ensures decisions are guided by the public interest, informed by policy objectives, and responsive to local context, while upholding transparency and procedural fairness. It emphasizes early issue identification, alignment with policy intent, consideration of process options, meaningful interest holder engagement, and ongoing refinement. The overarching goal is to balance innovation and responsiveness with sound planning principles and regulatory integrity. So essentially, this policy is just intended to give users an idea of how we evaluate some of the more, I guess, outside of the box land use planning applications that we sometimes get. And really emphasizes the department's approach to solutions-oriented planning frameworks. So I'm not sure if any of the committee members have any comments on this one specifically.
Go ahead, Alan.
So Dirk, if I could ask you, Dirk, the subject of potable water and wastewater comes up very often in terms of the planning document and the expansion of the various municipalities and hamlets within Middlesex County. There is nobody that is better informed on water and wastewater than the Ontario Clean Water Agency. I know you make a concerted effort to get public opinion and things like that. Do you, has Aqua been called for their comments on this? Because there is no one that knows that subject better than Ontario Clean Water Agency. Example, we have a water treatment plant on the shores of Lake Erie that's operating at 28% capacity. It's state of the art. All right, now it services Southwest Middlesex, West Lorne, and Rodney. And under the umbrella of the Tri-County Water Agreement, we own that plant. Extremely sophisticated plant, a newer plant. You know, Aqua can give you those details. They can give you that capacity level of that. They can also tell you that, you know, the stormwater or the wastewater management plant of Southwest Middlesex is being doubled in size as we speak. So they can provide that information to you. And, you know, you may find that information more beneficial than even some of the surveys, because it's coming from a professional entity that knows the infrastructure, knows the capacity, knows the growth perspective on it too. And I think that, you know, rather than just a call, you'd have to really formulate, what am I going to ask them when I get them on the phone? Because you want good information. But I really think that would be beneficial. I don't know, how many people use Aqua? to manage the water system around here, John?
I'm not sure. We do it in-house in our municipality.
Yeah,
I'm not sure who else has it. We used to have Aqua a number of years ago, but
Mm.
we've now brought it all in-house, so.
but I know that they do have a good knowledge of many of the systems. I know we pay them probably 600,000 a year to manage our water treatment facilities. Just a thought.
Go ahead.
Thank you for the question. I don't believe we have directly consulted with Aqua. We will. The one that we deal with more regularly is the Lake Huron pipeline. I forget
Yes,
the
of
exact name.
course you would, yeah.
And we have a long-standing relationship with them, even on circulating plan applications to them.
Mhm.
But I know on our current population projections, et cetera, they're doing some sort of modeling for their next,
Mhm.
I think, 100 years. So we've been providing them even sort of draft documents as we're working on it. So, but we will.
Yeah, Aquas are doing the same as well.
Yeah.
They're really great people. Fantastic people.
Thank you. Go ahead, Adam. Questions?
Thank you. So the next policy that we have on this slide says to ensure consistency and adaptability to change. Local municipal official plans may rely on the county official plan as the applicable policy framework as an alternative to including the same policies within the local official plan. So this would allow municipal councils to, for example, rely on the additional residential unit policies that are within the county plan, as opposed to including them in their local official plan. That's just an example. This could apply to any policy in the county plan, should a local municipal council wish to do so. Just provides a little bit of flexibility and could be especially beneficial in situations whereby the county official plan has been updated to be brought into conformity with a new provincial plan, for example, and the local municipal official plan isn't quite there yet. Provides just a little bit of additional flexibility in that regard. And then that's it from staff on the working draft policies that we've prepared to date. And we have a slide here that says the committee may identify any other topics for further discussion or analysis.
Before I go to the committee, I'm gonna turn to our two local planners. Lindsay, I'll ask you to go first if you want, and if there's anything you would like to add or ask for consideration of, go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much, Abby. That was an incredible presentation and very helpful for us as we kind of try to figure out what the next steps are for local municipalities. I guess my first question is a bit general. What does the remainder of engagement look like for the remaining scope of this project? And does that involve consultation with local planning departments and their planners at all?
I'll give Abby a bit of a break because I probably should have partway through her presentation done a couple of slides just to let her breathe, but I'll apologize to her, get her coffee afterwards. So we are at this sort of the pack part right now, and we hope in the next few weeks, as I'm sure you're aware, the county's official plan, because the ministry must approve it, it has to, a draft document has to go to the ministry for 90 days before county council can even have their open house or do any sort of other formal engagement. So we hope in the next few weeks to have that draft document submitted to the province. Starts that 90 days. In the meantime, we're going to continue to work and reach out. And so, including with our local municipalities. And so it can continue to evolve. And then we just notify the province if any language has changed. So that's sort of in the short term. And then in the fall, it would be, again, pending that 90 days and anything, a direction from the province, there'd be this sort of more formal statutory open house and public meeting in that. But I think we'll probably just, if it's okay, Abby will reach out and sort of, when you've had a bit of time to digest some of this, and just talk about how you think it fits, with your municipal priorities and the work that you're already doing.
I have a few more questions if that's okay. My second question relates to the section on settlement area boundary expansions. There was a point that stated the evaluation of alternative locations which avoid prime agricultural areas and where avoidance is not possible, consider reasonable alternatives on lower priority agricultural lands. What do you mean by lower priority agricultural lands? Is this just related to their class in the Canada Lands Inventory, or is there more for us to consider with that?
No, so that would be contingent on their class under the Canada Land Inventory. That's what's meant by that.
Thank you. My next question would be, I know there was a brief mention of OFDUs. Is there any further considerations being made for them in this plan?
Yes, there are. We are looking at expanding the policies within the scope of like the agricultural systems approach, really relying on the direction from OMAFRA in their permitted uses guideline, and expanding on those policies a little bit more than what we have now in terms of how they relate to the agricultural system and how they can be incorporated into the agricultural systems approach. In terms of any like proposed changes at this point in time, I can't, provide like anything definitive in that regard, but they certainly are being considered.
Perfect, thank you. Then can I still go? Okay, I just have one more, I promise. And this might be a little technical in nature, so if you can't answer it, that's totally fine. But in Thames Center, we have a lot of discussion, obviously, on additional residential units. And I have been talking to our building department a lot in our research on them and our reports to council. And one question that building always flagged was, when we say floor area, do we mean based on the building area, like the footprint, or the gross area of like all of the floors combined? What does that look like in this plan?
The draft policies that we have right now say ground floor area, so it would be building footprint.
And that's everything. Thank you.
Stephanie, your turn.
Thank you. Through the chair, I just want to say thank you for thanks for inviting us. I really do appreciate it, and I know at the outset when the notice was sent out, I know Middlesex Centre did through council provided notification that we want to be a partner in this, right? I mean, I think there's a lot of expertise and a lot of knowledge at the area municipalities, so we would like to be involved in this. And I know, again, drafting the policies, we really would have liked to be involved in that process and provide some input on that. And I'll give a couple of examples because I do think it's important for the committee to understand kind of the operational side of it as well. The county official plan document really is provides that framework, the policy framework. It doesn't traditionally include, numbers, regulations, kind of like these ARU policies speak specifically to ground floor area, which ground floor area is actually defined differently in each of our municipal zoning bylaws. So even just that piece of it could be really, really challenging for us to implement. And even just on a general level, having kind of regulation style kind of numbers in a county official plan just makes it very difficult. Let's say a building permit comes in at 151 or 1,501 square feet. There's really no mechanism like a minor variance or anything like that to deal with that. It would have to go through this whole process of considering a county, would a county OP plan, amendment even be considered? And so I just want to flag that. Again, I think it's important for the committee to hear from kind of the operational side and how we work with these policies. And I think there would be a lot of concern from the lower level and the building departments and the planning departments about having specific numbers. I know there was a direction to look at policies that speak to that, and policies typically don't include those regulation style numbers like 1,500 square feet. Again, that can cause a lot of challenges for the implementation side. So I'd just love the opportunity to talk about that and to just bring up what some of those challenges might be. There's a couple of other things I also just want to bring up too, I know that there was a lot of discussion on this, but when we're looking at establishing, again, a higher level policy, it's important to understand, again, the different context in which those policies are going to be applied. So the reverse ARU discussion, I mean, we're dealing with this all the time, right? We have quite a few of these in our municipality and a few inquiries about it as well. And the example that you brought was a perfect example where, you know, in reality, this policy framework could involve that where they were required to remove that house, but then they go and build an ARU. They could potentially go and build another ARU. So I just think it's really important. Again, you're creating the framework policy here. So I think it's just really important to consider those different types of context, right? So if a case where they agree to build the house, I mean, I think the intent of the policy is to prevent, you know, the large estate lots from taking up farmland and maintaining the house. I think that's really the intent, is to prevent those things. So there might be other ways of dealing with that. But let's say an individual wanted to come and build just a slightly larger house that fit within the zoning regulations, that was located within 30 or 40 meters from that existing house. Is the impact of that reverse ARU really that significant? And maybe that additional residential unit, or what they're wanting to use as the additional residential unit, would be for their, for their children or for their aging parents, so that they can live close to them, right? So there's a lot of different considerations if we're saying and following the PPS policies and wanting to support those types of units. I just think it's important to consider all of those different policy contexts. That could happen. So like, again, I just hope we can have an opportunity to share some of those examples. And again, when we talk about solution oriented, I mean, that was something that we looked at, or we noted in our letter about the flexibility for implementing these policies at the lower level. And that's exactly what that is being solution oriented. But again, considering the ARU policies as an example, again, that's just one of those really challenging things that there are other ways of implementing the kind of the intent of those policies where we would still be able to do what we needed to do at the local level to implement it. And so again, just a couple of those things. Again, we've haven't had too much time to review this, but I think it's important for the committee to understand that there may be other kind of perspectives on those that we would love the opportunity to talk about. There was another one that came up, and this is something actually our council passed a motion last week that we'll be sharing with the county regarding looking at the current policy framework. We do get a lot of opportunities and economic development opportunities, housing opportunities. Churches are a great example. We actually have a proposal right now where we're really struggling because it is designated agricultural. It's outside of a settlement area, but someone's interested in putting in a few units in an existing church. But we're really struggling from a policy perspective on how to make that happen. And so I do think that there are opportunities. Golf courses are another example. There are some areas of our municipality that really, I think, should be looked at in a little bit more detail. I know there was a discussion about the Class 1 and Class 2 and Class 3 prime agricultural lands. The majority of our lands here are that. I think there are a few small areas of lower class, but again, it is predominantly that. But I think we really do need to look at the specifics. We get inquiries from business owners quite often, looking to establish and looking for us to help them find land for things like spas and other, maybe we can call them tourism related endeavors. And with everything being agricultural land, even when it's not currently being farmed, it wasn't farmed, it's right on the boundary of the City of London. There's a lot of different, I think, considerations. And I think, and our council agreed through this motion that we would like to take a look at some of that. So again, I think I just want to flag that. And I just hope that we can, be engaged further in the process.
Thank you. I'll just comment that I think Dirk and Abby are certainly open to having those discussions with the lower tier planners. I think ongoing discussion is very important, and because we want to get this right the first time. and we don't want people coming back saying they didn't have an opportunity to speak. So I think Dirk and Abby are quite open to discussing and trying to come up to an agreeable situation that's good for Laura and the county. So I'll turn it back over to Abby.
Sorry, I just flipped my page. But there was one more about the private. I love that. I'm really happy to see that reference to private wastewater services, including package plants. Love to see that. I can tell you right now, we're getting very, very pressured from the development community now that, you know, the concept of privately initiated settlement area boundaries. And we all know that our municipal plans, they feed into everything. They feed into our asset management plans. They feed into our master servicing plans. Everything works together. And now when we're being asked to go beyond that, they're coming up with more creative servicing solutions that really are going to impact those long-term plans. So I would even like to see, there was a reference to kind of to private package plants, but you know, we have developers proposing those as the public system as well. So I'd even like to see that expanded to ensure that the county official plan supports a robust long-term fiscally responsible infrastructure systems to help us push back on those types of proposals.
Anybody else on the committee have any further topics they want to discuss or any analysis? Go ahead, Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to talk about package plants because they've been around for quite a while, and there's a firm down the other side of Toronto that makes a beautiful little one. But I just want to caution sometimes, it just comes from experience, that they're all good for a certain length of time, and then the municipality inherits them. And then they've got to expand that and put in a different type of a plant to service those areas. And it becomes expensive for a small group. So I just, you know, when we get talking about them, I don't want to say yes or no to them or anything else, but I think we should be very aware of sometimes, not like a snake oil salesman, but sometimes how you get them sold to you. But I want to make you aware of that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Ian.
I'd just like to thank the committee for a chance to participate, and hope when you come up with a working draft, you'd circulate the link to us so we can have a look at it. Be appreciated.
Yes, certainly. We would be happy to do that.
Seeing nothing further. We have the Middlesex County Official Plan Review, Growth and Development for Agriculture. You want me to use that? The Middlesex County Official Plan Review, Growth and Development Agriculture Plan be moved by Sharon, seconded by the warden. All in favor? So moved. Correspondence and information items, I don't believe we have any. There's no inquiries that I'm aware of or new business. Just before we adjourn, I would just like to have a couple of comments. First of all, to the committee, thank you for your time and all your efforts putting into this. I think it's been great. We will have probably some more meetings in the fall as things progress. To the planners, obviously, tremendous amount of work that the planners have put into it. And we thank you very much for your time and efforts there. And to the local planners, please feel free to reach out to Abby and Dirk. I'm sure they're more than willing to listen to what you have to say and see what they can incorporate, keeping in mind that this is a county plan and the county will have the final say in the matter. Just one further comment to all the clerks that have been putting up with a lot here from previous meeting for the clerks, the wow factor. Thank you very much. At this time, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh, Sharon, before we go ahead.
I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank Middlesex County or Middlesex Center for inviting us here to your wonderful new, I'm jealous, building and providing lunch. It was very nice of you to do that. So thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, Sharon's going to move to adjourn and seconded by Jim. All in favor? Again, thank